Everybody, welcome. Glad that you're here tonight. Glad that we have a chance to keep our conversation going for our spiritual gifts conversation that we begun a couple of weeks back. Most everybody, thinking as I look around the room, most everybody's been here, so most everybody is aware of what we've been talking about and studying. So last week we started talking about some of these gifts that I grouped together as kind of public gifts, gifts that are done in relationship with other people. And so last week we talked about the gift of leadership, and tonight we were talking about the gift of shepherding. And I think Scripture does make a distinction between those two things, although there can be a good amount of overlap between them. So we'll get into talking about shepherding here tonight, but I do want to continue to encourage all of us. On these Wednesday nights, we're talking about one specific gift. May or may not be something that is applicable to you or that you think is something that you're interested in knowing more about. But I want to continue to encourage us to be thinking about these gifts, be in prayer about, God, how have you gifted me to serve in community and in ministry? And of course, if you haven't had a chance to take the spiritual gift assessment as well, I want to encourage you to do that sometime soon as well. Share those results with me, and that way I can someday, here in the near future, hopefully get us some opportunities to get into ministry and get into service together as a church. Okay, tonight I want to start by, I think, talking about probably an assumption that can be made. I won't accuse you of making it, but it can easily be made about this particular spiritual gift. When we talk about shepherding, it can be very easy to think about this gift and say, oh, that's a gift that our elders have and our elders use. We're going to circle back around to elders maybe here a little bit at the end of class tonight, and I'm pretty sure I see just 2 in the room, so I'm only going to offend 2 of our 7 current elders when we do that. But I do want to start by saying, let's not make that assumption, because I think all of these gifts, some of them have a specific role that may be associated with the gift, and some people get thrust into those roles or even volunteer themselves for those roles, whether or not they are gifted in that way. And the same is true on the reverse side. Sometimes we have that gift even though we have been given no formalized role with which to use that gift. So when we think about shepherding, we have some shepherds. Denver and John are here in the room with us. Roger's a former shepherd. Anybody else in the room a former shepherd? Dan, okay. Anybody else? Okay. We have a few shepherds and former shepherds, but these are not the only people in the room that might have this particular gift. And in fact, between the 4 of you, 1 or more of you may not even have this gift. You may have other gifts that lend themselves to serving the church, even in the role of an elder, a role of a shepherd. That can bless the church. And so we'll come back to that here in just a little bit as well. But don't fall into that trap of thinking this is a gift that's only for elders or future elders, perhaps. This is a gift I think that anyone in the church can exhibit. Okay, so let's dive in and think about what is our gift of shepherding. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 and 12 is where we find Paul talk about this particular gift. He talks about it in the context of a role that can be filled in the church, but I think that it's fair to talk about it as a gift as well. So he says in verses 11 and 12, Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers to equip his people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up. And I underlined that word pastors there because that's our word that we can translate as shepherds as well. I've shared with you over the last few weeks the word, not only in English and its English translations, but also in Greek, just to have a little bit of fun. Unfortunately, I think we hit the pinnacle last week. I shared with you, does anybody remember Spude? I think that's the best one. I don't think we're going to top it. Spude was my favorite. That was the word that if your gift is leadership, then do it diligently, and diligently was that word Spude. Rick made fun of me for thinking that was a fun word. But our word this week is not. I know. Well, this week is not near as fun. So our word this week is poimen, P-O-I-M-E-N, poimen. I don't think that's near as fun, personally. You might think it's fun or whatever, but it can be translated Yeah, Rick, is this the good one? No.
I'm not tracking.
It can be translated as pastor or shepherd or one who cares for, a guide, a spiritual overseer. This is how our English translations deal with this word. These are the different options that they give us when we look through. If you were to just look through every English translation, chances are you're going to see one of these pop up as the translated word for this. So when we talk about what it is that this gift is, hopefully as you look at this list, you can understand easily why we associate this with the role of an elder. You can see, I hope when you look at this, you can see, like, yes, that's what I want from my elders. I want them to be pastors and people who care for and who guide and spiritually oversee and shepherd. That's what I want for my elders. But beyond our elders, all of us can participate in this gift, especially those who have this gift. We can do this for one another. You don't have to have a specific role in order to be able to participate with this gift in the body. You can do it just as yourself. So here's my working definition of this particular gift. It's a pretty short one this week, so that's a good thing. But a shepherd is a person that God gifts the ability to care for the spiritual welfare of a group of believers. And so those who have the gift of shepherding they are people who care for the spiritual well-being, the spiritual welfare of the group of believers that they're a part of. I don't think that it's a secret to us, and if it is a secret to us, it doesn't need to be a secret to us anymore, that we are living in a very lonely and anxiety-driven society. There are books that are just being written and flying off the shelves about this right now. They're written from secular perspectives, faith perspectives, but it is an epidemic in our society that people are lonely and anxious, and often more so than they ever have been, at least in the lifetimes of those in this room. This is a crisis that we're facing. And part of the reason for this crisis is because we don't have a good grasp, I don't think, of what this is in our society. We don't have a good grasp of how to accomplish this in our culture around us. And so people are turning and looking for answers. They're looking for something that will help them not be lonely and not be anxious. And unfortunately, oftentimes they're turning to the very things that make them more lonely and more anxious, looking for the answer to the question that they're asking. I could stand up here, I could keep you guys overtime tonight and get on my social media rant if I wanted to. I won't, but I could. These types of things that we are turning to, supposedly we're more connected now than we've ever been, and yet we're more isolated and lonely than ever before. Beverly could tell you the statistics way better than I could. Maybe some of you could tell you the statistics. Rates of depression and suicide, on and on we could go. They're higher than they've ever been, particularly in our younger generations. In fact, I heard recently, Beverly, tell me if this is right or not, that those who are over the age of 50, this is affecting much less than it is those who are under the age of 50. If you're under 50, it's more likely by huge percentage points that you are struggling with depression, anxiety, loneliness, even thoughts of suicide and things like that, particularly in our young folks, teens as well. It's really, really quite bad right now. And so I think it's really important when we talk about being the church that we understand how needed this is. The church is looked upon in our society right now as this disconnected, out of tune, out of touch group of people that have no clue on earth what it is to live this life. But if we could do this for people outside of our walls, how quickly would that change, I wonder? How quickly would people say, there are people who care for my spiritual well-being. They care for me in ways that I've never experienced before. And it could literally save people's lives. And so I think the challenge before us is really quite strong and quite intense. And I think it's really important that we really consider how we ought to do this for one another and extend it beyond our walls for other people as well. So here's what I want to propose for us tonight. It's a really simple idea. You guys tell me if you agree or not. We need shepherds. Does that sound fair? Paul got there 2,000 years ago, 2,000 years before me, Paul got there. God got there well before Paul did, because this is one of the primary images that God wants to use for his people and for his people's leaders. He wants his people to understand about him that he is a shepherd. Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd, right? God over and over again wants this to be the image that is before his people, of this image of shepherding, of caring for their spiritual well-being, caring for that person on a holistic level, and saying, I want to see you thrive and succeed and experience life, the life that God intended to the fullest. And so tonight what I want to do is I want to break down, hopefully, 3 potential ways that each of us can put some effort into this. Those that have this gift, or who might be thinking about whether they have this gift or praying about, is this the gift that God has given to me? I want you to pay special attention, but all of us, I want us all to pay special attention, because we need to be able to do this whether we're gifted in this way or not. We need to be able to do this for one another. Okay, so the first one, and I'll say this too, I think that these 3 things that I've chosen to share tonight, I think they build on one another, if that makes sense. So I want them to go in order the way that I'm presenting them to you. I think you do the first one, and then you do the second one, and then you do the third one, and that's how I want it to be presented tonight, is they work sequentially and in order, stacking one on top of the other. So the first one tonight is simply the idea of friendship. I have been shocked in my ministry life, career, job. I have been shocked by how many times I've been told by somebody that they've never made a friend in church. It happens way too often. And the reasons for it are totally understandable, and they make a lot of sense when you think of when I think of my own life. It makes a lot of sense. The reasons that you hear are things like, well, it was just really hard. People there seem to have known each other for decades, and it was really hard for me to get to know somebody because everybody else has been there for decades. Yeah, yeah, significant friendship. That church it has too many cliques. Oh, that's a cliquey church. Anybody ever heard that one before or been a part of a church like that? I never found a place to belong. It didn't seem like anybody was interested in helping me find a place to belong. I've known people in churches, and I've heard stories from friends in churches that they've spent years yearning for, working towards, not passively sitting by expecting somebody else to do it, but really trying to make friends, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't happen. We need to be so intentional about making friendships, and I'll add in, I think, spiritual friendships. I want that to be like not just like we're buddies, but like we're connecting on a spiritual level. We're talking about matters of faith. We're talking about things that are important in our lives. That goes beyond just that. How are you this morning? Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Have a great week. We can be friendly and never have done the work of making friends. Does that make sense? And so I think that level of spiritual friendship that I'm wanting us to consider tonight, I think that's really what this is about. And I'll say this too about our church, just to challenge us, to challenge those who are in the room tonight. Our church has been adding new members at a really high rate. In my opinion, it's a high rate right now. This last Sunday, I just announced, I think it was 7 family groups, family units. And there are people, last year I think we had 65 new members. I can tell you the numbers, right? These are people that are new to our fellowship. They're new to our flock. A couple of them are sitting in the room from the last couple of years, right? We need to be so intentional with new folks to our church to let them know that we're reaching out to them, that we want to draw them in and provide them with friendships. We want them to experience this idea of their being cared for on a spiritual soul level. And I'll also challenge us that there are probably people who have been a part of this church for more than a year or two, maybe who have been here for decades, that are like those people that I described earlier. I've been trying to make friends for years, a decade, and it just doesn't seem to be working. I think we've got to do a really intentional job of trying trying to become friends with people. I'm not saying you've got to know every single person in the church, but don't miss opportunities to go out of your way to meet somebody that you haven't met before and to try to establish a friendship with them. I think that would go a long way. Okay, second, start asking questions that you've never asked before. What I mean by that, I don't mean asking somebody if they'd rather be a walrus or a rhinoceros. Chances are you've never asked that question to somebody before. That's not the kind of question I'm talking about. I talked about this 2 weeks ago when I preached through this grouping of spiritual gifts, but what if we asked people on a regular basis questions like, how's your prayer life? Is there something going on in your life right now that's keeping you from connecting to God? What can I pray for you about? Questions like that. I think that you have to have that spiritual friendship in order to ask those kinds of questions. Like, I don't just walk up to somebody on the street and say, how's your prayer life? They might hit me. But once you've kind of done the work of trying to establish that spiritual friendship, I want to go out of my way. I've noticed this one person, we announced this. There was that one new member, and we announced him, and that's my person. I'm going to make a spiritual friendship with that person. I'm going to go out of my way to try to do that. I think we need to have the ability to ask one another these types of questions, and I think it will nourish and build those spiritual friendships deeper and help us to make those connections stronger, so that people don't walk into a church thinking, I've been here for a decade and nobody's noticed me. Nobody. Other than saying, hi, how are you? They've never said a word to me, kind of thing. So I think we need to learn to ask those kinds of questions and be willing to. Is it fair to say that might be a little bit outside some of our comfort zones? I'll be honest, it's outside of my comfort zone.
Go up to someone and say, do you have anything that I can pray for you about? I think anybody would tickle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and by the way, these work for not only for one another, but they work for others outside of the church as well. Again, I wouldn't start right off the bat with what's going on in your life that's keeping you from connecting to God, but you can get there, I think, pretty easily with somebody if you're willing to be intentional about that. Here's another suggestion, another example of something that you might be able to try. Does anybody in here have a practice of reading Scripture daily? Anybody? Yeah, quite a few of us. Man, just go tell somebody, I was reading, here's what I read today. It really blessed me. I just wanted to try to bless you with the same thing. Something like that, where man, I was reading in the Gospels and Jesus did this, and it reminded me so much that He is so good, and I just wanted you to remember that He's good and see what you thought about that. That could be another example of a way that you could go to that second level of asking questions or saying things that you typically don't say, and do those kinds of things. Okay, then third, and this one I think. To me, when I was writing it, it seemed a little counterintuitive, and I almost didn't go here, but I think it's worth going here, because what I'm advocating for when we talk about this kind of spiritual gift is it's a very relational, community-based. The third one I'm about to give you is a very individual thing, so that's why it's third, because you have to do 1 and 2 first before you can do this one. But don't settle for the faith that you had yesterday. Hunger and thirst for more. This one's challenging for me, I'll be honest. It's really easy for me to fall into a rut and settle for the faith that I had yesterday. It's really easy for me to sit back and say, I know enough, I've read enough, which, by the way, is not true. But it's easy for me to convince myself and think that, to settle for the faith that I had yesterday and say, I'll just rely on what I already know. I'll rely on what I've already read. I'll rely on the prayers I've already prayed, etc. I could go on and on. And so I want to encourage us to be hungry for deeper and better faith than what we've had to this point. Not because the faith that we have now is bad, but just because we want more of it. We want more of Jesus. We want more to connect with Him more and connect with His people more. We want to be His kingdom on earth. And so, again, this is third intentionally. Don't start with this one. I mean, always hunger and I'm not saying don't hunger and thirst for more faith. But please also do 1 and 2. Like do 1 and 2. Don't skip 1 and 2 just to do number 3, right? If that makes sense to us. Okay, I want to get into a little bit of discussion here in just a minute, but I want to give you a chance to respond to these 3 things and tell me I'm way off base or no one's ever done that kind of thing, or I'm already doing that. This class was a waste of my time, or something like that. So respond to these 3 ideas about things that we can do, I think, to lean into this gift a little bit more as a community. What do you think? Doable? Not doable? Jake, your head's in the sky. What are you thinking? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else?
I think it has to be intentional. You can't think it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you get to Leviticus, what do you go to someone and say, I was just reading the story.
It reminded me of you.
Rick, I was going to say, your mom and I have been in Revelation 14.
I had a guy come to me one time, that just about what you were saying, he said he was reading the Bible today, came across a question, can I ask you what you think? And, well, yeah, what do you think? And we talked for an hour.
Mm.
And I don't know if he was just doing that or not, but it worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said, that's mine.
Yeah.
And hell, it sounded like.
Yeah. 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 And my hope is that we would be enriched, that all of us would be enriched by, even if it was just one encounter with somebody. If I just had one of those this month or this year, like, man, wouldn't that enrich you just a little bit? And you'd look back on that after some time goes by and think, that was so neat that happened.
Right after Jimmy died, Tanya Hamilton would wait for me after church. We didn't sit together then, they sit in the back, but she would come, and if I was talking to somebody, she would wait till I was finished, and her question every Sunday was what she could pray for me that week. And I really knew that at that moment she was protecting my faith. And I got accustomed to the question, and so I found myself even thinking, well, then I asked somebody to pray for me. That her faithfulness in doing it, not just once, but every Sunday.
Yeah.
Probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And now we still do it with each other. But now I'm able to participate in it too then. But it was such a tender move for a broken heart.
Yeah.
Or to be able to do that with faithful. I don't know if she's ever asked anybody else that before, but I just wanted to throw that example. It was simple.
Yeah.
She got comfortable with it, because we did it so faithfully.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful for me.
Yeah, and go back to the definition, right? Like that, or at least my definition, like the spiritual well-being. You're caring for the spiritual well-being of a group of believers or another person. Like that's what this gift is all about, and I think people are hungry for it. They're looking for, I need community, I need people, I want to connect, and I can't find the place to do it. I can't find the people to do it with, and so I think if we can become that for each other and find ways of extending that beyond ourselves to those in our community, I think it would do a lot.
These people here, when I was shocked at the friendship that developed. Just so, I remember I wasn't here a month or two, and Roger had an old clock. It heard I done woodwork, so will you fix my clock for me? He gave me this old clock that meant something to him. He gave it to me to take home to fix, I was just so tickled.
Yeah.
Just so tickled that it opened up a friendship.
That's right.
So quick.
I would have to agree. Mark and I came probably a little after they did, but the church we'd been in prior to coming here, I mean, nobody ever asked us to go out, nothing.
Yeah.
It's just, we were there here probably. But coming here, it was like they just made us feel like we were a part of the group, and I never felt that before.
Yeah, and please don't hear me today beating up on us and saying, we're doing a terrible job at this, but just how great the need is That the word intentional, like even how great we're doing, there are still people in our body hungry for it, and there are people certainly outside of our walls that are hungry for it. And so just be so intentional about if you feel the slightest like I could do a little bit of that, like don't hold back, do it, do that little bit that you think you can do, because I think we need it. I think we're hungry for it.
I like the third one.
Yeah.
Don't sell for the faith you had yesterday. That also, there were things that we were taught as young people in the church that I don't necessarily agree with, or I don't know how to say it. It was just like, it's just being able to go to somebody and say, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Or why do you think this is happening? And how does that compare to what the scriptures say? Just having somebody that you can, because we all should be growing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to have friends that we can bounce stuff off of, especially those that are more, have more wisdom and more knowledge than we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I like the way that guy hit me with. He was wanting me to tell him.
Mm. Yeah.
Oh, that's sure. I got to tell you.
Yeah.
I just know he can set me up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me give us an example. I've wanted to do this every week, and I'm gonna keep doing it every week. But I wanted to give us one example from Scripture that we could look to and say, well, maybe that's kind of what it looked like. So tonight, I'm going to give you a very imperfect example of what a shepherd looks like. Remember back in the Old Testament, there's this guy by the name of Eli, and Eli is essentially the leader of God's people. He's the one who's connecting with God and relaying God's messages and wisdom to God's people. But Eli is not a good leader. And that's evidenced perfectly by his sons, who are some of the most despicable people, it seems like, in the entire Old Testament, which is pretty impressive considering how despicable how many despicable people there are in the Old Testament. And so God is going to take away the leadership of Israel from Eli, and particularly from Eli's sons. And so along comes this guy, Samuel. Samuel's born to Hannah. She gives birth to Samuel in her old age. She had a barren womb, and she gives birth to Samuel, and she dedicates him to the Lord. And so Samuel goes to live in the temple. Well, I guess it's not the temple at that point, but Samuel goes to live, and Eli is training Samuel. And you remember this story. Those who have heard it before, you remember this story where Samuel's a young boy. He's sleeping overnight, and he hears someone call his name. And it's the middle of the night, just like I would do and just like you would do. He gets up and he thinks, well, who could have called my name? The only other person around, Eli. And so he goes to Eli and he says, Eli, I'm here. What can I do for you? And Eli's waking up and, I didn't call for you. Go back to bed. And this happens 3 times until finally Eli realizes this jerk is not just trying to keep me awake. Something's going on. And so Eli asks a question that he hadn't asked before. He tells Samuel to do something he hadn't told him before. Samuel, when you hear this voice the next time, will you do this? Will you respond in this way? Sends him back to bed. And Samuel hears the voice again. And what does Samuel say? Speak, for your servant is listening. It opens up something. It opens something up in Samuel's life. This spiritual connection to God that he didn't have before. He's speaking with God. Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. Eli is an imperfect, pretty despicable dude, especially his kids. And yet he, in this one instance, is able to spiritually connect Samuel to God, to help Samuel make that connection in a way that Samuel had never experienced before. We can do that for each other. We can help one another make that spiritual connection to the Lord that we've never been able to make before. But it takes us being willing to say something or to ask something or to make a friendship with someone that we hadn't done before sometimes. And so I just want to encourage us in that and challenge us to be thinking along those lines. we have a few more minutes, and I want to ask a couple of questions, give you a chance to discuss with the person sitting next to you. This gift can easily, what I'm proposing at least, can easily be outside of our comfort zones. It's outside of my comfort zone, and I think it can easily be outside of our comfort zone. So I want to start with a simple question, which is, how do we recognize this gift in ourselves or in other people? What is it that helps us to recognize if somebody might be especially gifted in this arena? Is there an experience that you have or an idea that you have that would help you recognize this in someone else or even in yourself? So I want to give you a couple minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, to discuss with the person sitting next to you or near you. Introverts, my friends, who are like me, just close your eyes, keep your head nice and low. Person sitting next to you won't even have a chance to talk to you because you're not paying them any attention. But for those who are willing to discuss with the person next to you, and those who maybe just want to think about it, feel free to do that. I'll give you about 2, maybe 2.5 minutes, and bring us back together, and we can share a little bit. All right. Wrap up your conversation if you can. What are some identifying characteristics, or what experiences have we had that have helped us to identify this type of a gift in someone else, or maybe even in ourselves? Anybody brave enough to share tonight?
My wife, she said she got asked by a co-worker if she was a Christian because she could tell that she acted, you know, just by the way that goes through her day. And that's the first time I'd heard it. I thought that's a good thing to have.
Yeah. When other people outside the church are noticing that we seem to be spiritual people, that could be a clue that you're the kind of person that is exhibiting a lifestyle, or you're being intentional in your relationships in such a way that the care that you have for the spiritual life of following Christ is evident to other people. Yeah, good. What else? Yeah, Denver.
I think Meg was saying that some people in the past are very outgoing. They get people to open up to them and pray. Lord came to mind. And, you know, that for them. That's what something that be able to show interest. Some people have better getting people to open up to them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that works both directions, right? who do people go to when they need someone, right? I I need someone. Who do people gravitate towards? So it works that way, but it also works on the aspect of kind of more like what you were saying, that there are certain people that they can get you to open up in the way that other people can't. And that doesn't have to be a negative thing. That can be a positive thing. That there are some people that are so genuine, and they you can tell they care, and so you're willing to maybe interact with them in ways that somebody else, you might not be willing to interact with that person. Yeah, yeah. Did I see a hand, Shaniqua? Yeah.
I do that a lot. It's an exchange of energy. A lot of spiritual people do it. I have a lot of background. I grew up with you know, I had a friend teach me how to listen to the voice of God. You know, you can hear it if you listen. That's what's inside yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't take people for who they are. I always look inside, basically inside their soul. And you can tell the sweet side of that person all the time if you just, feel that person's energy, feel their aura, feel their heart,
Yeah.
and you can tell.
Yeah, yeah. There's a sense. There's a sense that we can have about people. This is a little bit different than your experience. But I had a friend who was very, very into Tai Chi, and so that energy exchange and understanding people's energies is a part of Tai Chi as well. And that's like way above my head. It's above my pay grade. It's foreign to me. But this guy was so good, like somebody could walk in and he could tell you, like, oh, you don't want to know anything about that person, kind of like you don't want to go near them, like they're trouble, they're danger, whatever, and usually he'd be right, and so there's a sense that we can have about people, people who are safe people like this, who care about our spiritual well-being and care about us as people. Sometimes you can even just sense it by being near them in their presence, kind of thing. So yeah, thank you. Good. Anyone else? Yeah, John.
Look at people like that, you hear the term, this person's a natural. They're just naturally given to that. But if you research that, that's not true. I mean, there are people that are outgoing and they want to recognize, they want to help others spiritually, physically, however they want to, and associate with people and work with them and help them. They worked. I mean, they made a commitment. One person that we were just talking about a while ago, we just thought she was a natural for doing that. And then Melissa talked to her last week, and she said, oh my goodness, no. Said they were talking about the first time they had enough courage to say hi to anybody. How smart that was.
Yeah.
So it's something you got to work at.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think even with all of these gifts, there are things that they can grow and develop in us, and they can also atrophy going unused, right? So just because God gives you the gift of shepherding or any of the gifts, if you don't utilize it, that first time that you go to use it, I thought I knew how to do this. It's awkward and it feels weird and it doesn't work the way it's supposed to, right? So good. Okay. My second question, we're going to take just 2 minutes on this one. This is a judgment-free question. I need you to understand that this needs to be a judgment-free question. Because, like I said, we've got 2 elders sitting in the room. We've got 2 former elders sitting in the room. So this is not meant to be those elders, they need to get better at this or anything like that. But here's what I want to ask is what would be the benefit of being shepherded on a regular basis to you? So again, this is not meant to be a let's pile on or anything like that. But just think about for you, man, what would be the benefit? What would that do for you in your spiritual journey with God and your faith, if you were being shepherded or are being shepherded on a regular basis? Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay, 2 minutes. Go. If you can, try to wrap your conversation up. Anybody feeling up to, well, here, before you share, let me say this. The reason I asked this question tonight is because I want us to have that thought in mind of kind of where we talked about a little bit earlier about how people struggle so much in our world right now. They need people to look after them and care for them. And so I want to ask this question, not just because it matters for us, but also because I want to think through, do the answers that we have to this question matter for those that are struggling as well? And by answering this question, can we look outside of just ourselves too and say, who else needs to feel that benefit? Who else needs to feel that as well? So I just want to say that as well. That doesn't have to change your answers, but anybody willing to share on this one? What would be a benefit to just having this on a regular basis? Yes.
Understanding that people come from different worlds.
Yeah.
People learn different. So you cannot throw your beliefs on someone else, but understand their beliefs and try to navigate and teaching them what from your belief and teaching them how they learn and from what they believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be true.
Yeah. There's a level of empathy there, right? Like this idea of like, I'm seeing you for who you are, and we're going back to that spiritual friendship idea. Like friends don't coerce. They don't lord power over each other. There's empathy and connection there, relationship. So yeah, good. What other benefits?
For me, I tend to, when negative things happen in my life, whether it's something someone has said to me or maybe it's some event or whatever, I can tend to get stuck for a while. But I think if I had someone that I trusted, that I could talk to, that would, and Beverly does this for me. I mean, sometimes we guys need a guy, or you know what I mean. I think that'd be very helpful.
Yeah. Imagine thinking outside of ourselves. Imagine how many people are stuck in anger, regret, confusion, shame, loss. Yeah, man, to have somebody that can walk you through and be with you and help to lift you out of that and get you unstuck and say, let's go play a round of golf. And that's just you're gonna go deeper into that anger, especially, right? But to have somebody who can help get you unstuck, and they see you and they see that you're there, man, there's pain there, there's struggle there, and let's just go be friends. Let me take care of you for a couple minutes.